Hi guys, Pete Turner here, and I'm excited to share with you something I've been working on for a number of years. If you've ever wanted to walk up to anybody, any place, anytime, guess their PIN code on their mobile telephone, this is a download for you. Can I ask you a question?
How the hell did you do that?
The next one, so the third digit, look at me, scream it at me, Johnny, say it to me. You're lying, you're saying 7, that's not the third digit. We're in 10,000 different digits, and we're in there, right? That's it. We're in. Can you imagine calling somebody on the phone right now for me? Who's Blaze?
Milkshake.
Who is that?
That's my partner.
With the techniques and refinements and subtleties that I've added to this project, you can guess any code you want from any kind of phone. You can think of calling anybody you want. And look at me and I'll try to guess who it is, and once I get that information, then I'll go for the more impressive piece, the code. So do you mind if I touch you here? Look at me and imagine screaming this at me. It's really interesting because I don't know what this means. It almost sounds like it's two words. Who's Ashton? Who is that?
My friend.
Is that your friend? Because that name's probably interesting, right? Can we take this a step further, right? Imagine telling me that first digit. Imagine screaming it at me. So this is really soft. So this would be a 1, I think. Look, imagine screaming this. This is 6 digits. If it were 4 digits, it'd be 10,000 combinations. 6 is well over 1 million. Look right at me. Imagine screaming this at me. I say as well, you keep people at arm's reach, have 2 genuine friends, a lot of acquaintances. Just fell out with a friend over the phone a couple of days ago as well, which is something another 8, yeah? And we're in.
That's really cool.
I tell you what's even nicer, and this is something that I've never really been shared with anybody, and for the first time I don't know why I'm sharing this. So I really hope you love the things that are in this download. I've shared subtleties, scripts and performances from my own working repertoire. So thanks for tuning in. As I was walking through the streets of Columbus, this gentleman leant over the bars and called me and said, "I've just seen you doing stuff up there, can you show me something?" So my name's Pete, your name is?
Joey.
Joey, nice to meet you, and?
My name's Will.
Will, nice to meet you, Will. Now this is what's interesting, is as I'm walking around Columbus, I'm stopping people and trying to guess things that they're thinking of. You saw the reactions over here that I was getting from these people. Do you believe it's possible to read a thought?
I don't.
You don't, and that's interesting, because if I could prove to you right now that it was, would you start to believe me?
I would.
You, okay, so I need to know how you think. Just think of the first number that pops in your head, don't say it. Now most people at this point would go for a 3, but I know you're not most people. You did think of that and then change your mind. Did you go for a 7? Yes,
I
right?
did.
Good, and that's how I do this. I read controlled thoughts, and I'm going to try to do this again with a PIN code to your phone. Do you have a phone with a lock on it?
Yes.
Get it out for me. Do you want to open that up, keep it towards yourself whilst you open it?
Okay.
Done it? Do you mind if I take a photograph of you?
Now go ahead.
Okay, so there's over 15,000 thoughts that go through your head every single second. And for me to be able to separate one of those thoughts from the rest, I need to catch it the moment it's at the front of your mind. So I'm going to hold this up, and when it's at the front of your head, you give me a clear yes.
Yes.
Boom. And it's as simple as that. Yeah? Now, I'm just going to try to read this. Yes or no, do you know your zodiac sign?
Yes.
So just imagine the exact amount of letters in your zodiac sign. In fact, don't worry, just mix them up. There's an R in there, right?
Yes.
Yes, and an A as well, yeah?
Yes.
There's not an I in there, is there?
Yes.
Yeah, and an S, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, and an E? You're not sure, you're not an Aries?
No.
No, look at me, just keep saying like Aquarius, Aquarius, Aquarius. Keep screaming at me, look at me. Say it to me, look at me. Oh, I know this. Heavy personality type, outgoing, I'd say as well, even though you're working here, you've just had an offer from another company that you've not told anybody about yet. I'd say, have you just got into a relationship as well? Because you've just started dating a girl, right? Yes, Sagittarius. Yes, perfect. And this is all just from reading this, right?
Okay.
So let me try this. I'm going to lock this up, and I'm going to see if these guys can't guess this, right? So, the first digit, there's 6 digits in this, there's over 1 million combinations. Look at me. So I'm feeling as well there's like 2 or 3 digits repeated in this, right? Yes?
Okay.
There's 1, 2, 3 digits that are the same. Look at me. Look at me. 1, 2, I think, let me go. If this doesn't work, it doesn't make a difference, I'm just going to try this. The last digit, scream it at me. Scream this at me. I think it's this. And we should be back inside the phone like that. And there's
Yeah,
over a
right.
million combinations. Can I ask you a question?
How the hell did you do that?
You thought it were absolutely impossible to read a thought. I guess your star sign, the fact that you've just been offered a new job. I also guess the fact you've just got into a relationship. Do you believe it's possible, Joey, to read a thought?
That's crazy.
Do you believe
I
it's
don't know how
possible?
you do that. I do now.
Good man. Thank you for your time,
Thank you,
Joey.
man.
So I've been walking through the streets of Columbus and I bumped into these amazing people to help me with a mind experiment. I'm Pete, your name is?
Courtney.
Courtney? Chris? Shannon. Courtney, Chris and Shannon. Now, I propose to play a game in which I read a piece of information from you there's no way I can know. So who am I going to be using?
Me.
You. Do you have like a cell phone that's got a lock on it or a code? Can you
Yes.
get it out for me? Now, I want you to do this for me. Open it up. This is where it's important. Have you
Okay.
done? And tell me when it's open. You know the code off by heart, right?
Yes.
Tell me when it's open.
It's open.
Good. So look, now, no, open it up. So type in the
Okay.
code so the phone's opened up. Yeah?
Gotcha.
Now look, this is what's important to me. Can you hold your hand flat? 'Cause if this doesn't work, it doesn't make a difference.
What
But I'm
is
going
it?
to try. I'm going to look for your calculator. I want you to
Okay.
take this. Now this is so that you don't have to say this out loud, right?
Alright.
I want you to punch in the numbers in the code. If she lies, you're going to know she's lied. But I want you to stare at this for a few seconds so that you know what it is as well. Press the big button on the front, the home one, and then lock the side. Polish the screen so there's no fingerprints. When I'm doing this, people always polish it. So people always think that there's fingerprints. If I asked you to imagine calling anybody you want, and you watch me going through it, I'm just clicking on it, I don't know anybody from your phone, you could think of calling anybody you want. And look at me and I'll try to guess who it is, and once I get that information, then I'll go for the more impressive piece, the code. So do you mind if I touch you here? Look at me and
No.
imagine screaming this at me. It's really interesting because I don't know what this means. It almost sounds like it's two words. Who's Ashton? Who is that?
My friend.
Is that your friend? Because that
Yeah.
name's up over your head. Interesting, right? Can we take this a step further, right? It's strange this,
Okay.
right? Hold your hand flat for me, because if this doesn't work, it doesn't matter, right? Look. Imagine telling me that first digit. Imagine screaming it at me. So this is really soft. So this would be a 1, I think. Look. Imagine screaming this. This is 6 digits. If it were 4 digits, it'd be 10,000 combinations. 6 is well over a million. Look right at me. Imagine screaming this at me. A 9.
Oh my god. Okay.
Mind if I touch here again? Okay, this next number I feel occurs maybe more than once because this is only one higher than your favourite number though, which is interesting. Yeah, your favourite number's a 7, so I feel this is an 8. So 198, and then it's an 8 again, right? Yeah? Look at me. Can I borrow this hand? Have you just moved house?
Yeah.
Yes, because it's almost like everything's been turned upside down. And this is represented by one of two things, either just getting out of a relationship, which is also something
Right,
else, and just, but I won't go into that for the camera. It's a 0 now. So you've just got out of a relationship, just moved house. You've just been offered a new job, or you're focusing on a new job as well, but you haven't told anybody that. So this was by the phone as opposed to anything else. I say as well, you keep people at arm's reach, have 2 genuine friends, a lot of acquaintances. Just fell out with a friend over the phone a couple of days ago as well, which is something nobody, another 8, yeah? And we're in.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah. That's crazy. Thank you.
Good, no problem. Thank you for your time. Thank you for helping out. So thanks for helping me out, Jacob.
No problem.
I'd like to talk about the simplest pin divination on the entire project. Now, this one's one that I came up with a while ago, and I were on a flight back from America, in fact, and I seen this accountant messing around with his phone, and I saw him do something. I'm like, wow, I could use this. I tried to find a context in which it fit in. I originally wrote this up in When in Rome back in 2014, and I've got so many different touches now. You know, I want to share a few of those touches with you. So, the very first performance is really simple, and I know you know this effect inside and out. You ask somebody to open their phone, so you open this, and don't let me see when you're doing that.
Done.
So at this point, you'd get them to go to their calculator, and you're doing this under the guise of asking them to type the code in to show somebody else. Now, the reason that that's important during the performance is because that's where the soul method lies. So I tried to create a logical context in which they need to go to the calculator to do this. Now, the reason usually is I want you to write this down, pass it across. This means that they can see what it is and you don't have to say it out loud.
Right.
Now, you could use the dial pad for that. You know, so there's a little subtlety that I have used in situations where I've noticed that there's no swipe up, and you'll understand what I mean by that in a moment. But so they punch in the code. Let's say that the code is 1234. What happens now is I get them to press the big button on the front and then lock the phone. So what happens essentially there is, supposedly in their mind it's gone, you can't get into it. They polish the screen to ensure there's no fingerprints. And that's a key point here, because when they're polishing the screen, I want the audience to sort of feel like any explanation they could have as to how this has worked, I've eradicated, I've
Out
killed,
the window.
so that there's no logical backtrack. So there's no way they can get back to it. So there's this beautiful moment now that not a lot of people know about, but right at the bottom down here there's a little tab. And if you pull that tab up, you can still access the calculator whilst the phone's locked. Like this, right?
Right.
So I know you know this, but it's still pretty cheeky even after all this time.
It is. It's great.
Then when you, this is where there's a little subtlety that I realised. I used to relock the phone at this point, but the problem is, if I open the phone, so do you want to type the code in? Look what app comes up. The calculator
It
comes
pops
back up.
Right back up. Yeah.
And you don't want that to open. You don't want that calculator coming back up. So to kill that, they press the home button, they've locked it. I've picked up the phone, I've swiped this up like this, so I'm doing it face forward. So I swipe this up like this, I press the button,
See the total.
and I see the total, and then I press the home button. So now what happens when the phone gets opened? So it jumps to the menu. As you can see, it goes to the menu.
Right. Looks a lot more congruent.
Yeah, it's a nice disconnect, I'd say, from the actual method. But sometimes I realise that when you pick somebody's phone up, and I do what's called a test, it's just a signal test. I'll say to them, can I use your phone? And I'll press this first, and I'll realise that there's no tab at the bottom here, because you're looking for, there's a tiny, tiny little, it's almost like a little widget,
Right. It's a little bar down
a little
there.
bar down at the bottom. Now, if they haven't got that, don't worry, you can still do this effect, right?
Really?
Yeah, it's
Oh, cool.
really simple. So I don't want everybody knowing your code. I'll open it up. You go to the dial pad instead. You get them to punch in the code, so they punch in the code for the phone.
I don't mind doing my actual code for them. So.
You don't mind them saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't mind.
So just for the camera, it's 3361.
Right.
Now they're keeping it towards themselves like this, and you say, don't let anybody see that. You take a look. So you get them to take a look, and then they close it like this, and you say, right. What you do now is you tell them you're going to take a photograph of them, and I do use this ruse again later on, but
Yeah.
the reason why I'm going to be taking a photograph of them, what I've just done is screenshotted the dial pad. So because I've screenshotted the dial pad now, if I go into their camera, so again I'll quick access this because I don't know where it is on your phone. If I take a photograph like this, and I look at that photograph, whatever it is, all I need to do is swipe right, and I can see the screenshot of the dial pad. You know, I'm pretending to read the photograph, and I do this in the bold pin divination later on. So if there's no tab on the phone, it's really simple. You just get them to type it in the dial pad.
Right.
You say to them, just punch it in there for me, and get yourself in position like this. Just punch it in. As you bring it down, you say, you take it, remember that. Close that off, delete it out, and then close it off. So when they delete it out and press it off now,
Yeah.
all you have to do is take a photograph of the person, which you will see in the bold pin divination.
Right.
You pretend to read the photograph, and then you just simply swipe to the right to see a photograph of the dial pad. And then it's as simple as saying whilst you're talking, just deleting the photo.
Right.
Really easy.
All the evidence is gone.
Really elegant.
They can look at all
So
the
don't feel that if you can't do this because there's no tab on the bottom, just use the dial pad. Likewise, that's the way that you do this on an Android phone.
I was just about to ask.
Because the issue with the original variant of this effect is that it were very iPhone dependent. You needed somebody who had an iPhone. Some of the time then you'd find in performance that somebody at the table didn't have an iPhone, and then you were stuck. So if you've got an Android, just dial pad it, screenshot as it gets passed across, use the ruse explained in the bold pin divination to go into the photograph, swipe across and simply delete it, and you're clean. You can just get into the phone at any place, anytime. So just to quickly highlight what we went over, you're asking the first participant to take the phone, you go through to their calculator. I make a big effort to look through the phone like I don't know where it is. I don't swipe up and go to the calculator.
Right.
I'm making a big effort to go through the phone, find the calculator, because that's sort of how they're going to remember I need to find the calculator. Like I don't say, oh, I don't know where it is. I struggle to find it, and then a couple of seconds, it doesn't need to be an extended period of time. You then go in, you open it up, they punch in the code, so in this case 3361. You then tell them to pass that to somebody else, they stare at that, remember it, press the big button, that's the home button. Then they lock the phone, polish the screen so there's no fingerprints, that's the disconnect. You take this back, and this is what it looks like real time. So after they've locked the phone like this, you take the phone back. As you just press the button, you simply hold your finger there, roll it towards yourself. I'm looking at this now. So I'm looking at that. And I say, okay, I turn my hand this way and place it face up on the table, swipe forwards. So the wrist kill there, and I'll show you that again just to overtly show you the action. I'm looking at the code like this, just as simple as this. I'm just pressing the home button, turning it face down and up. And, it's really simple to look at that. If you feel you're going to struggle remembering it, stare at it for a few seconds. You're talking to them. Remember, they don't know you can get into your phone. Your thumbs are up like this.
Yeah.
Because what that suggests is that you're isolating your thumbs from the phone. And the only time that my thumb comes down is like this.
Yeah.
You don't want to turn too fast or you'll flash. So it's going to come up. I'll show you the speed of this. I'm looking at it like this. I just turn, casual, place it down on the table. So you don't want to do it too quickly. Because what you're going to get if you do this too quickly, it's going to look like this. And they're going to see this.
Yeah, you'll see that orange for a moment.
And you don't want that.
You don't know what it is, but you know something's wrong.
It needs to be just nice and gentle. Your thumbs are isolated from it like this. You just turn, place it face down on the table, and you're ready to do this. It's as elegant as that. You've now stole the PIN code. This is the most important part of the entire routine. Because if you just punch 3361 into the phone, this is not interesting. And the reason it's not interesting is because that's the method. And you punch it in too quick, you're going to kill the reaction that you get from this.
Agreed.
So what you need to do is you need to create an interesting context in which to reveal the PIN code. So the way that I could generally do this is if it's a number like 3 or 1, a very low number, I often do this. Look at me and focus on the first digit for me. Now to make this interesting, do you think you could say this digit in a different language?
Yeah.
So instead of saying it in English in your mind, I want you to speak out loud in your head, not out loud verbally.
Right.
And I want you to tell me that number in a different language. Because I believe our brains are communicable no matter what language, because there's this connection that exists. Look at me, keep saying it. Okay, it's really interesting. You went for French. Yeah?
German, actually.
For Germany, okay. German, scream at me. It sounds... Okay, if it's German... Oh, it's a 3 then, yeah?
Yeah.
Now, it really doesn't matter if I hit on the language. I go for it. It's going to be French, German, or Spanish mainly anyway. It's only going to be...
Right.
Really one of those 3 things, unless you think that the person might be from somewhere outside that in Europe. But generally, if you ask somebody, it's going to be French, German, or Spanish. I found French and Spanish are more popular than German.
Yeah, it's how the US is too. It's Spanish more often than not.
So when they're doing that, you look at them and you can take a guess and you just say, keep saying this, and then I'll take a punt at the country. If I hit that, no worries. If not, I'll then say, okay. And then when I reiterate the number, it's almost like I've recalibrated now and I'm trying to hear this in German. And now I'm hitting the 3. And when I confirm the 3, I'm still hitting it. But it's interesting, I think, because what you're doing is taking almost the way you reveal the numbers to the next level. So there's that. Another one might be that you ask somebody to imagine a huge pin pad, so like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you hold their wrist and pretend that you're muscle reading.
Yeah.
Each one, and there's this beautiful visual where you're going, just imagine this, relax your elbow here, relax. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. So we go back to the top line. Imagine telling me this. Don't tell me, but okay. It's definitely not a high number. Look at me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, right?
Yeah.
And there's this beautiful visual process of doing this.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love the way that looks. Again, all this is about being like, the phone's irrelevant. The phone's a method, so you need to disconnect yourself with the phone.
Right.
The only thing that you want to do is when you punch it in, watch the visual of the phone flashing open for everybody else to react. And that moment's likened to turning a pad round
It really
and
is.
getting a hit. right? So when it pops up, that's what you're wanting there. But try to think of all the different ways in which you can guess the numbers. Be wrong.
Oh,
if
yeah.
if you feel that there's a skeptic there that's sat at the table, and you don't want them to verbalise what the first number is, because sometimes I've noticed when you say to somebody, "Is it a 2?" They go, "No, it's a 3."
Yeah,
And you don't want them taking that reveal from you. So don't say, "Is this a 2?" and like you're querying them, and they go, "No, it's a 3." You want to say just yes or no. Is this a 2? And they go, "No." And I say, "Well, look at me." Now, by miscalling the first number as wrong, what you do there is subtly suggest that you can't have peeked it, because why would you get that first number wrong? If you'd seen it somehow, you're not going to purposefully get it wrong. And that's how you utilise a miss sometimes in performance, to subtly push the method even further away from the participant's mind.
Plus it brings it down slightly. So
Yeah, so here it comes back up.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of the time you'll get you relatively close. You say, "Yeah, we're thinking it's a 2 or maybe a 3, right?" And you hit it. Now, if there's 2 digits at the same, one thing that I always say is I also feel there's 2 digits that are the same in this for ease of remembrance. And when I get a yes now, that's another hit. And all I'm trying to do is open up as many hits as possible. If I notice it starts with 19 or 20, if it's not something like 2027,
Right.
the likeliness is that this is, you know, a date if it's from before the date we're on now. So if it were 2010, you know that it's going to be a year, right? If it's like 1982 and the person in front of you looks like they're roughly born in 1982, the likeliness is that you can also tell them how old they are, or you can say that I feel this is a connection to a number that's relevant to your life in some way. This is a number, and so you're getting extra hits. You're trying to just look at the number, realise what you feel the number's telling you. Like, for example, if you get, I mean, in England, and this wouldn't be the same in America just because of the dates. If I see 2804, the first thing that I ask is, be honest with me, is this based off your date of birth? And if they say no, I say, because a lot of people do set it like that.
Yeah.
Right? And if they say yes, I say, "Oh, well, that's interesting, look at me." And now I've got a free star sign. By knowing the dates and the months, I've got the free hit of the star sign. I'm now trying to push for the fact of, instead of focusing on the phone, look right at me, and I try to tell them the date they were born, and I say, "No, I'm still stuck slightly on the month, but I feel this is one of the earlier months, so it'd be a 0. Now I pick the phone up, and I punch in the 4, and the phone opens.
Yeah.
Right? So
Very nice.
I'm just looking at the number to see what that number tells me. If I look at a number that's spaced out, so like, you know, 7346, for example, because that number's spaced out, that doesn't seem like a digit that somebody would use every single day. So the likeliness is in that case, and you can go for the hit, it might be wrong. It's the same for their bank card, their ATM card.
Yeah.
Right? So when you find it's a number that's a pattern like that, the chances are people, for easy remembrance, use the same passcode. So you can fish for that by saying something along the lines of, being honest, this is not the same as your Visa, is it? With a closed question. This is not the same as your Visa, is it? Right? Or your debit card, is it? Because if they say no, you say, you know, I really didn't think it was, but I had to double check because I'm almost feeling like I'm picking up on that as well, so ignore that. And what you're subtly suggesting is that you're feeling their actual debit card and then moving into revealing this instead.
Right.
If you know this, you can use a springboard S principle to get the Visa. I wouldn't suggest that it's process heavy. If you don't know what that is, you know, refer to some of my earlier works or look into Michael Murray's stuff. There's some really interesting stuff in there that'll teach you how to use this number or utilize this number as a springboard to gaining that. When you do that, you're killing this, right?
I agree with you on
So,
that, yeah.
but you can be really creative at this point. So let's say, for example, I've got this number, right? And I say to them, I'm going to try to guess your PIN code. Now, I could lean in and whisper, now I know your phone code's different to your Visa, but I'm going to refer to your PIN code for your phone as your Visa code, because for me, it's better for me visually to be able to grab that information. So,
Right.
so then I lean out and I say, now I've asked you what to focus on for me to guess the code you're thinking of. And I say, so ignore the phone, we're not going to use that. Look at me, focus on the code to your Visa. So now they focus on their phone code whilst everyone else is thinking of the code to their Visa or their debit, right?
Right.
So now what I do is I say, look at me, and I reveal the first 2 digits, and I say, I don't want everybody at the table knowing your Visa code, so I'm going to whisper the last two, and I whisper them and I get the reaction and everybody else reacts. What's beautiful is they've said that the code for their Visa is different to their phone. So now I say, I just want you to close your eyes for me, and I just want you to take yourself back in time and start to build a memory with names and stuff in it. I pick the phone up, and now I punch in the first 2 digits towards myself, turn it this way, and I look at everybody else and go like this, and I punch in the last 2, and the phone opens up as well. So because they've got their eyes closed, they never see me opening the phone.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody else at the table then assumes I've just guessed the Visa code and the phone code.
Yeah.
I lock this back up and put it back on the table, and I just sort of go like this, ask them to open their eyes, and then I move into the routine with the memory, or whatever routine it is that I'm going to use next. But if you're wanting to create a seeming hit of 2 pieces of information, I don't think there's anything more beautiful than utilising the Bob principle like that, by saying, look, I'm going to refer to this as this, after they've told you that the Visa code and the phone code is the same. From the audience's perspective there, you've revealed both bits of information.
And plus, everyone else coming in has no idea that you even had them thinking your phone code.
That's it.
So that's how I think I originally saw you doing this with the credit card hash too.
Yeah, on the that were interesting on the credit card hash too, is because a lot of people rubberneck and they come into a performance halfway through.
Yeah.
And by the time they're coming halfway through, the dirty work's already done. And that's what's so beautiful about this. Is at the start of this, the dirty work's out of the way. So you're never needing to have to focus on anything other than the performance for the rest of the effect. So,
Beautiful.
is there any questions about this? I think were referred to as simply overlooked when in Rome. Is there any questions or anything you'd like to weigh in on this?
There was, I think I've seen you do this recently. I think I've seen a few people that when you pull that, I've never actually seen it one without the bar down here, which that's interesting, because it's good to know that what to do if that ever happens. My question is, I know some of them have flashes that go off and such when that's pulled up. You counted any way to kind of get around that easily, or?
I had it happen to me once, right? And what I noticed is I had the phone here, and I've picked it up, and I've swiped this up, and I've noticed the light come on. So instead of holding the phone like this, what I've done is pushed it back down, lifted it up like this, like, you know, just like it were an accident or they might have seen something. I didn't panic. I then pulled it into my palm so that I'm killing
the light. Yeah.
And then I swipe it. Don't try to do it with your fingers because the light will stream through the back. You have to use the opposite hand. The camera's on this side, so you have to use the opposite hand because the palms, it's not going to light up.
Yeah.
I just swipe it up and I just hold it like this whilst I'm talking.
Okay.
It rarely happens, and this is a horrible position. It doesn't look natural. But at the end of the day, if you start by doing this and holding the phone like this, and then you turn it over and you hold it like this, and you make out like you're just feeling the phone's properties in a psychometry-esque sense.
Exactly.
When you hold the phone like this, and you do this now, and then you swipe it up and you do this, if you've made it obvious you're going to be holding this and handling it in an obscure sense, then people are probably not going to notice it when you're doing this to kill the light.
And it is a very rare thing. I've honestly never seen anyone else have that set up, and I've used this actually a few times, so.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I don't think I've ever had it flash up on me, but in fact, I won performance, and I think it was filmed when I were working on a different project. Yeah, so I saw it on a different, I was working on a different project, and it happened by accident during the performance, and I just kept really cool and just kept moving on. And I think it's like the analogy of a thumb tip. You know, people are not looking for it, so they're not going to see it. So
exactly.
don't run when you're not being chased. This is very method heavy, but if you just reduce the method and focus on the presentation, all of a sudden you realise that even though it's a method heavy effect, it just seems to just run smoothly.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that's the explanation of Simply Overlooked.
Beautiful.
So Jacob, thank you for joining me on this project.
My pleasure.
I'm going to explain a routine called Simply Overlooked. So before I do this, I'm going to perform it on you so the audience can see what it looks like, and then they can tie it to the live performance and know exactly which one we're talking about. So usually there'd be a group of participants when I'm doing this, but I want to just work with you. Now this is your phone. I'd like you to pretend you've just taken that out. I've asked you if you have a mobile phone with a code on it. Can you open that up for me?
Certainly.
You done that?
Yep.
So now, again, this is important. Make sure I'm, not going through this in any sense. I want you to take this and type in the code to your phone. Don't let me see. Now, the reason that I'm having you type this in is because your brain processes over 15,000 thoughts a second. And because it's doing that, the likeliness tracking down one piece of information, sticking that piece of information in place long enough for me to read it, is pretty much impossible. So with you looking at that, it's right on the forefront of your mind. Can you remember this number for me? I know it's a ridiculous question, but just imagine seeing each digit insequentially, yeah?
Got it.
So press the home key, lock the side of the phone, don't let me see, polish the screen so there's no fingerprints. The skeptics in the room always think that I'm looking at the fingerprints when I'm doing this. I'll take that off you. Now, again, if this doesn't work, it doesn't matter, but I'm going to try my best. Look right at me, yeah? Okay, so just imagine saying this code to me. Imagine telling me it. Focus on the first digit for me. Now, if you can say this in a different language, that'd be incredible. If you can't, it really doesn't make a difference.
Okay.
You can do that, right?
Yeah.
Just imagine screaming that first digit to me in a different... Okay. Soft... Oh, this is a 3. I feel as well with this number, the 2 digits that are the same in this. Maybe for ease of remembrance or something like that. And
Yeah.
positioned, I'd say, fairly close together, because this would be, for me, a simple pattern. Have you used this code for something else?
Yeah, yeah.
For your visa?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. 3. Do you mind if I open this for everybody
I
to
don't
see?
mind at all.
Imagine telling me this next digit. Imagine, okay, this is again a 5 at this point. No?
No.
Look at me. 6. Yeah, scream it at me. Imagine telling me the last digit. Imagine, I'm going to go for this. And we're in, right? So there's over 10,000, and that's just as simple as it is. There's over 10,000 different combinations. And I don't know how it works, it just does.
Yeah.
But what
Nice.
really intrigues me, if I asked you to imagine going through your phone book right now and calling somebody that there's no way that I can own, you can literally pick absolutely anybody you want from your phone book. It's, you know, there's no restriction. I'd say go for an obscure name or a nickname just so there's no way that I could guess this person's name straight up. Yeah. Now, what's really interesting is I saw a few names flashing through your head. You thought of a female and then changed to a male, I feel, but that really doesn't make a difference. I'm getting a G. This starts with a G, like a Goofy Goober or something like that. Goober. Who's Goober? Who is that?
That's Emily.
Emily. Ah,
Yeah.
right. So was that the first name that you thought of before you changed?
Yeah.
And then you changed to Brandon.
Yeah.
Right, there we go. Perfect. And
That's fun.
that's just it's just a little bit that you can throw in between this. So yeah. So let's get into the explanation of that. So this is the explanation of the name divination.
It's very nice.
I really like this, and if you look at the reactions, and we're going to cut in a few clips here from the reactions of just the name revelation.
Right.
So you can see the reactions that these people have. It's ridiculous.
It really is.
It's so simple, so clean, so elegant, and this is probably one of the best things that I've ever come up with because it's 100% surefire.
Yes.
And I always hated having to give somebody a billet to write down a name when they were dealing with a PIN code. Because I always felt like you're typing your PIN code into this, you're writing a name down on this, I'm having to peek this, and then I'm having to utilise a billet peek or a switch to look at that. And I didn't want to do that. And I have a name divination method that is in freeform mentalism, so that's another P3 project. So if you've not got that, there's a beautiful name divination in there that you can do any place, any time. This is slightly different in the sense that this is not chancy.
Yeah.
So the
That's
way that
awesome.
this works is really simple. Where in the first routine where you're doing the pin divination of the simply overlooked, the one where you swipe up and you press the button. So obviously I know the code on this phone now, so if you don't mind, I'm going to
Oh,
access
go
it.
ahead. No problem.
So the phone opens up. Now, just before I'm going into the calculator on that routine, remember what I said about I'm looking across to try find it, and I go, I'm just going to get to the calculator. Oh, there it is. And this pops up, right? What I'm doing is something really simple and really elegant, and we'll come into a close-up of this. If you swipe right twice, it brings up a name of the most favourite contacts in the phone, the people that were contacted the most recently. So there's Brandon Wolf
Yeah.
and Goober. Now I only know the expression Goofy Goober, so I'm assuming I'm assuming it's the same, right? But you
Yeah.
can see there's 4 names here. I just choose 2 of them and remember it. That's it. Now I wouldn't usually utilise this until later on in the performance.
Right.
So I won't just jump straight into, oh, think of a name. For the purpose of this project, I have done that because I would usually be performing a set for a group of people.
Exactly.
I'd guess your PIN code and then move around the table, and then I'd come back to you later on. So there's a disconnect between the names and the phone.
some time restriction in
Yeah,
there as well.
yeah, it's a time delay. It's a time delay principle because I wanted that big gap, that big distance between the performance because it is logical you've just touched the phone if you do it straight away. Whereas if you go around the table, you're guessing other things, your credibility is being built, and then you come back to the first participant and you say, I want you to imagine you took your phone out again. You can imagine calling absolutely anybody you want from within that phone. Now I'm going to make it seem like I'm nailing the name that they're thinking of, and I'm not. Right? That's the beauty of this, because I want it to seem like they have a free choice of anybody in their phone book.
Right.
But then I need to bring it back, and I need to reveal one of these two names. So the way that I do that, I say it's really interesting, because I felt, and let's say it's two male names, you thought of one name and then changed your mind. Now that's my out, that's my safeguard. If I saw a male and a female name, I'll say what's interesting is I think you were thinking of a female first, then changed to a male, or vice versa. It doesn't matter how you say it. But it's one thing's for sure is you thought of one name and then changed your mind.
Right.
I always finish with that, because I always go, I feel you went with a female name and changed to a male, but one thing's for sure, you definitely change your mind subconsciously from one to the other. And if they went, no, I stuck on one, I say, well, in your brain, I don't know why we're getting this. If they say, no, I stuck on one, I say, well, I don't know why subconsciously from your brain I'm getting this. And then I just reveal the name.
Right.
Because then when I say, so I go, who's Hannah? Right? Or who's this? Who's that? What happens is then, because it's their favourite contacts, and it's on the forefront of their mind, they'll go, that's really strange, I was just talking to Hannah. Or
Yeah.
Hannah's my girlfriend, or Hannah's this. In this case, it was Goober and Brandon.
Yeah.
So I've looked at you and I'm saying, I feel you changed from a female to a male, and you give me a yes. And then I said, I don't know why I'm getting this name. It's like, it starts with a G, and then you're starting to frown because you didn't connect with that name. But then when I said to you, I don't know what this is, it's like a nickname like Goofy Goober or Goober or something like that. All of a sudden you connect to that name because you're like, how does this guy know Goober?
Yeah, right.
Like, did I think of that? You don't know what your subconscious brain's doing. But then after I've realised that you wasn't thinking of Goober because you looked like you were frowning, instead of just going, yeah, begins with a G, if the name you were thinking of did begin with a G, you'd be smiling, going, yeah, it does. So I said, that must have been the one you changed your name from. I also saw as well, Brandon, like you have you change between that. I don't say you change to that. I do if I think I'm 100% on. But if I'm not sure, I'll say, yeah, you changed between those two names. It was really strange. And I get a massive, massive reaction from that. You know, I get a massive reaction. People freak out. And it's all as simple as just swiping right twice, peeking it, swipe it back and pressing it. That's it. So it's a really simple, really elegant routine. I drop the name in on the offbeat. Instead of trying to ham it up as if I'm going, oh, it's this, or
Right.
ta-da moment, I'm dropping in, I say, you know, who is this?
It makes
I'm
them
asking,
a lot more impressive too, I think.
yeah, because they're not expecting it. It takes them out of the left field.
Yep.
So it's a simple but elegant name divination that you can tie to any of these pin code reveals. It's quick, any place, any time, and you don't need to worry about it.
And of course, you get multiple people too in the group as well as you're going through.
Yeah, so so it's like I say, it's a really cool, simple, and elegant routine.
Yeah.
So that's that. That's the name divination. So this is the explanation of the bold pin divination. I've added a load of subtleties and touches in this since I first wrote about it in 2014. There were a Japanese magic company that stole this idea pretty much verbatim and released it on a DVD a year and a half after I'd released it in a book. Now I've never done this in video format before, I've never talked about it in video format, and I've never shared my touches and subtleties. So I'd like to talk about how I do this, but before I do, let me just quickly show you what it looks like. Now,
Beautiful.
I think it's pretty obvious that I know the code for this phone, but it really doesn't matter in this effect. I'm just literally showing you, you know, what this looks like. So if you open this up for me, don't let me see. Is it done?
Yep.
Now, do you mind if I take a photograph of you on this phone?
I don't mind at all.
Now, there's a reason why I'm asked to take this photograph. It's because there's over 15,000 thoughts that run through your head every second. And I want you, at the moment that the pin code's right at the front of your head, to give me a clear yes. And I'm going to read the characteristics within the photograph to work out the number. Does that sort of make sense?
It does.
So look right at me. When it's at the front of your head, give me a clear yes.
Yes.
And all I have to do is take a look at the photograph to be able to read you. So you're looking very Max Maven-esque there. I love it. I don't know if you can see this, but he genuinely is. Yeah, it is. The Count Dracula peak. Right. I love it. But you're looking great. So looking at this now, I feel there's two digits that are the same, and I'd say there's probably two odd digits in this if you focus on as aggregates. I'd now give a reading, as you saw in the performance. For the sake of explanation, I'm not going to do that. Again, I feel I've got everything that I need from this, so the phone gets locked. I now say to the participant that's with me, and you can do this on camera, can you shout what you believe the first digit is in this PIN code?
3.
Is it a 3?
It is a 3.
You see, you're doing perfectly, right? Now, I want you to try this again and shout out another number. But this time when you do this, I want to prove it's not guesswork. Give me another one.
5.
A 5. Is the next one a 5? No. You can see the first time that you struck it lucky, the second time it becomes a little bit more difficult, right? I'm going to show you how I do this. I read the photograph and I believe I know what the pin is, so I'm just going to type in what digits I believe it is, and I think that should open the phone, and we're back inside, just as simply as that.
Beautiful.
So it looks really easy, and in all honesty there, if you just watch this and thought, well, yeah, he's already admitted he knows the code, I'm not typing the code into the phone, right?
And also what you were saying earlier, I've seen you perform this around last day or so, and the lines he gives are the same every time. They always seem to hit.
Yeah, I
and they
just
hit with
use a
mine
stock line.
too. They're great though.
I use a very simple
Yeah.
stock line. So let me show you what I'm doing in this one. You never need to guess the person's code. You never need to know anything about that person to do this. As I pick the phone up like this, I'm simply talking for a second. I just got to give the phone like this. What I'm doing is taking a screenshot like this by pressing the home button and this at the same time. Boom, it takes a photograph. So now I let them open the phone. In this case, like I said, I know the code. When I go into the photographs now, the last photograph that's going to be taken is obviously going to be a photograph of the code screen. I did screenshot twice, so I'm just deleting one of them to give you a demonstration of this. So it's the last photograph that's been taken. I don't want to go into the photographs though. There's a really interesting feature on the iPhone. When I go into the camera, if you look down the bottom left-hand corner, there's a little tab here that's got photographs on it, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to utilise that just yet, right? I'm going to take a photograph of you. So you smile, boom, it doesn't matter when I take the photograph. I now punch the tab at the bottom. That brings up this. I pretend I'm reading the photograph. I need to in order to swipe to the side to be able to come back to the screenshot of the lock screen.
Exactly.
So what I'm doing is pretending I'm reading this. I might, if I want, throwing a star sign in there whilst reading this, go for a date of birth guess, try to reveal some information. I just give a couple of readings. I always say, I feel that there's maybe 2 digits that are very similar or the same in this. What does that mean? 1 and 2 is very similar. 2 and 3, they're close to each other. 3 and 3 is very similar. And a 3 might look like an 8.
Right.
So I say 1 and 2 digits are very similar in this, or there's 2 numbers that are the same, right? I say there's 2 odd digits in this, right? Now most of the time there are, just based on probability. It's 50-50, there's going to be 2 odd, 2 even. That's just a stock line. I'm reading the person, talking about how I feel they are as a person. I say as well, you've got 2 genuine friends, and I feel a lot of acquaintances. These are just stock lines, simple cold reading stock lines.
Yeah.
You can Google those, there's hundreds of them. Just utilize them when you're throwing out a reading. You looked at the performance. Like I said, I'm trying to be very casual the way I'm explaining this.
Yeah.
But in performance, I'm very tight and on the beat with that.
Yes, you are.
When I'm done, I'm staring at this for a few seconds, and I say, okay, I think I've got this. And now what I do is I don't actually press the button, I just press above it, like this. Or, if you want that clicking noise,
Yeah, how'd you get the click?
I'm punching the volume up button. Right?
Nice.
So as I press this, that's it. They hear the click. I wait for the volume button to disappear, and I just simply slide across to the side. You'd slide anywhere. Now I turn it to show the group. There's a reason that I'm showing the screen to the group and getting someone else to guess. I don't need anybody else to guess, but I need to ensure they've seen this lock screen. So remember, the clicking noise is just utilised by simply pressing the volume button on the photograph. You then swipe across. You're now at this screen. I look at somebody and say, can you try guess the first digit for me? The chances is 1 in 9 they're going to be wrong. In this case, you were right, but in most scenarios they're going to be wrong. And I say, I think that shows you how easy this is to fail, and you can't just guess this.
Right.
So I'm going to show you how I do this. I read the photograph and I believe I know what the code is, right? And then I punch it in. This time you are revealing it fairly quickly. If you're struggling, you might say, oh, I was struggling on the last 2 digits. I think I've got the first 2. You try to guess what the first one is, and they're wrong. You now then punch into and you say, look at me, stare at me. Okay, I think I've got this. And you can start to read them for the last 2, should you want to put a bit of process in the actual guessing process of the numbers.
Exactly.
You know, you could say you got the first 2 digits from the photograph, the second 2 digits from the person. This is the beauty now. This is a little subtlety that was shared to me via Morgan Strebler when I shared this idea back with him in 2013, I think I shared it. I released it in 2014 and I had a contribution from him on this. So this was his subtlety. When you're then on this screen, the problem is if I just do this and go like this, it looks like I've unlocked it, but later on when they go back into the photographs, they're still going to see this. So I don't want that. So what I do is I look at the screen as if I'm pressing a digit. The first number I'll press, you'll notice the white bars appear. The second digit, now what I do is really strange, but I tap twice, I go like this. Like I'm pressing a number, and I use this finger to press the recycle bin in the bottom right corner. For the third digit, I just simply press this, it's gone now. The last digit, I don't even touch the screen, I'm touching this and I do this.
Yeah.
But the way that I do it is when I'm doing this is what it looks like from the perspective of the audience.
Yeah, it looks perfect.
Because they see that, you time it just right so that it looks like that. And again, I'll show you that. I'm in the photographs like this. This would be the lock screen, it's the delete key. I've deleted the photograph, I'm staring at this. I say, look at me, tell me that last digit. Tell me the last digit, I think I've got this. And you just turn like this. And just swipe across once and you push it back. The evidence has gone off the phone. They can go through the phone, they can check the photographs. They're never going to be able to see the photograph that you created. The only time you're ever going to get called on this, and it's never happened to me, I've never ever been called on this, is in the recently deleted photographs.
Yes,
right?
that is a pain in the ass.
I've never been called on that, but the thing that makes it interesting is if later on you say, do you mind if I just look at that photograph again to try read a few more things about you? If you've not already utilised the star sign guess, you can then open that. When you open on this and you're staring at it, just simply go down to the recently deleted and delete it. Don't feel guilty. I've never felt guilty. Be 100% honest with me, Jacob, and I want you to be really honest and don't lie for me for the camera. Unless you've accidentally deleted a photograph that you shouldn't, how many times have you ever gone in your recently deleted photographs to just check stuff?
Never.
People don't do it.
Like literally video once, I think I had to recover, that's it.
And then, not only that, when you're doing this, it's going to be weeks after the performance that they do that. Anyway, what's the chances of them doing it just after to check the recently deleted photos? They're not going to do that.
And they'll think, oh, I must have taken a screenshot on accident.
That's all they're ever going to think. So don't worry about that. Don't think about it being in the recently deleted. This works on Android as well. Now,
oh, nice.
I don't know how to screenshot on an Android. But you can do it. And you can do it with a swipe screen. You know, they have a swipe pattern.
Yeah.
You just take a photograph of the swipe pattern.
I love that. That's
Right?
great.
You can do this with a swipe pattern. You can take a photograph of the number lock and just do the same routine using an Android. So the simply overlooked one right at the very start while you're swiping up, you can use that on Android by doing the screenshot of the dial pad and then stealing the information that way. And in this routine, you can do the exact same routine on an Android. So this will work no matter what person you approach at what table.
That's great.
So I like to talk about another effect, the life equation. Now this is an absolute favourite of mine. It comes from 101 Methods of Force, and that's certainly the first place I saw it. Now I've gone over this so many times in the past, so I want to keep this really brief. But there's a reason that I want to include it in this download. Because one thing that's for sure is when you open somebody's phone at a gig, or you open somebody's phone in a close-up environment, the first question that gets asked is, open my phone up.
Yep.
And
exactly.
you don't want to utilise the same method twice. So this makes it really incredibly easy to show the same thing at a distance. So let me give you a demonstration of what this looks like. Let's pretend I've opened somebody's phone. You said to me, can you unlock my phone? And my response is, well, I've just done it, so why don't we try this a little bit differently? I'm not going to touch the phone, I won't go near it. Pick the phone up for me. Go into your calculator, keep it toward yourself. Now, PIN codes are generally inspired by either convenient numbers that are easy to remember or life-inspired events. What we're going to do now is take a culminative of your life-inspired events and try to create a code that's random. So what I want you to do for me is punch in the year that you were born. That's 4 digits. Now bearing in mind if I were to go around the census, and I'm going to pretend there's other people here so I can look around because it's awkward just working with one person when you're on a camera. If I were to go around and ask the census of the room, the likeliness is based on probability. There's only going to be 1 or 2 people that share the same year of birth. Please don't let me see that. Now this is where it becomes important. I could probably look at you, work out roughly how old you are, do a little bit of mathematics, and I'd be able to work this number out. So I don't feel it's a fair enough pin code. So let's make it more interesting. I want you to think of a year that's important to you, but one that's not on Facebook, one that you could easily remember. Press the plus key and then type in that year. So what you've essentially done there is obscured 2 pin codes. But I still don't feel that this is fair enough. So press the plus key and type your age in. Press equals. Again, if I went round and asked everybody else in the room to add these numbers up, the likenesses would totally be different, right? Now, I want to prove that they'd be different, just for the people in the audience that are maybe thinking we're the same age or whatever. I was born in 87. I'm assuming you're not, but it really doesn't make a difference, because my special year occurred in 2010. It happened 6 years ago, and again, I'm assuming yours is different. So if I press +6, even if we were coincidentally born on the same year, if you press +6 now, plus the amount of special years it's been since your special year, the total will be different. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Press equals for me. So you've arrived at a pin code there's no way that I could know. Do you think you can remember these digits?
I hope so.
Lock the phone and place it face down. I'm never going to touch that. So I'm going to try to guess what this is. Now in your head you're going to tell me what this is, but you're never going to verbalise. The only time I want you to verbalise is if you give me a yes or a no. So look at me. Focus on any digit in that series of digits. It's really interesting. I feel with you went for the one in the second position, and then at the last second changed to the one in the third, yeah? Are you thinking of a 3 right now?
Yes.
Yes. Focus on the first digit for me. Do you mind if I touch you here? Imagine screaming this digit at me. Imagine saying it to me. Look at me, louder. Scream at me like this is a 4. Look at me, the second digit. Scream it louder and louder and louder. Look at me. 0, 4, 0, 3, 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. There we go.
Nice.
So that's the pin revelation that you can use should you ever be propositioned to guess a second pin code. It's very simple, it's very elegant, it's self-working.
Oh, it's incredible.
Like I say, it's as old as the hills. I've added a presentation to it. I've called it the life equation because I thought it was a really nice, beautiful name for it. It never really had a name.
Yeah, it's just kind of called the number stunner or something like that.
And Henry Fesch did a version called It's the Knockout.
That one.
Which is, it's slightly different, but the one that predates that is from 101 Methods of Forcing. So on the Demon Notes series, there are 202 methods of forcing, and it appeared in there, but it were one paragraph, and it's so overlooked. And a lot of the classics are, but this is still relevant in today's society because, I think this is really beautiful. If you meet 2 people that are married, what's really cool is you can ask the first person to type in the date they were born, pass the phone on to the partner. In fact, you know what, how long have you been together? You can say, how long have you been together? Whatever, you don't even have to ask that question. You can say, type in the year you were born, pass the phone back. You know what, you type in your age and pass it back. Type in how many years it's been since the wedding, right? And and that's 2 people that have made a code there now, and you can add it up. If you find that you can do this with 2 people, it doesn't have to be one person. I tell you what's even nicer, and this is something that I've never really shared with anybody, and for the first time, I don't know why I'm sharing this, but do you remember the Vegas shuffle with a deck of cards where each party would shuffle a deck of cards and then swap and then shuffle the other person's?
Yes.
Right? I'd ask each party to type in a random piece of information and then swap phones, right? So, because what I'm doing is if I get you to type in the year you were born,
Okay.
right, and I ask this person to type in a year that's special to them, swap phones. Now I say I want you now to type in, type in. I try to remember the exact choreography in performance. It's so easy. You're asking you to type in the year you were born, and this person to type in a special year. You swap phones. You then say, I want you to type into that person's phone how old you are. So they do that, and I want you to type in how many years it's been since your special year. So you've both got a random total on your phones. Now I want you to take these 2 totals and add them together. That's it. Now in performance, it's very easy to do because you're not thinking about breaking it down. This is something that I've never taught, so it's still from a teaching perspective very rough. But in performance, it's really smooth. You're giving them the phones, they do this, you're going to do this, you've both got a random number now, yeah? I want you to add these 2 numbers together. And it's really interesting because the totals are going to be different on their phones because, but when you add them together, it's still going to total 4031 or 4032. So to break down how this works, if you put it in its simplest form,
Should we just grab your phone and?
I would show it on the phone, but the problem is I think it's going to confuse things from a teaching perspective. It's really easy. So because you're typing in the year you were born, and then you're typing in your age, it brings it back to whatever the year is currently. So let's, for example, say you type in the year you were born, and then let's say you were 20 years old, right? And then you put plus 20, it's going to bring you back to 2016.
Yeah.
If you do this with a year that's special to you and how many years it's been since that special year, it's going to bring it back to 2016.
Yeah.
So it's always double, the total's always double whatever year you're in currently. So
I understand.
so to break it down, let's say, for example, I said to you, please, I'll reverse the order of how I asked them to add it together. Please type in there the year you were born. They do that. Press the plus key and type in your age. Press equals. Now, I'd never do that in performance, but that'll total 2016.
Yeah.
It will total 2016 because he's got to, right? Because you're just taking away how many years it is since you were born and then adding that back on, right? And the same with the special year. If I said put in your special year, now add how many years it's been since your special year. All you're doing is deducting it and adding it back on. So it's always just going to be double 2000 and whatever you're in, right? So I stagger that with a performance by saying, can you type in the year you were born? And I say, now if I were to look at you, the likeliness is that people think maybe I could estimate how old you are. I've done a little bit of mathematics and somehow I've worked out the year you were born. So let's make this more interesting and obscure that total slightly. I want you to think of a year that's special to you, but not one that's on Facebook. Now, there's a real reason I ask that question is because once I've become acquainted with you, the likeliness is if it's on Facebook, people will leave going, oh, maybe he found him on Facebook and he somehow knows. By mentioning not on Facebook and one that nobody else here would know, then if they don't know it and they're this participant's friends, there's no way that I could know it. And I said, this is getting a little bit fairer now. And all I'm doing is staggering year of birth, age, special year, amount of years, and doing it like this, sort of staggering them.
Yeah.
So I'm staggering them in between so that it's the year of birth, then the special year, then the age, and then the amount of years since the special year. So I'm staggering them because in the original it didn't do that.
Yeah.
In the original it literally said type in your age and then the amount of years, type in the special year and the amount of special years it's been. And so I staggered them, changed the scripting, and there it is. It's a very easy effect to understand. So again, just one more time to highlight, they type in the year they were born. Add that to a special year. They add that to their age. I haven't pressed equals at this point. You don't have to. But there's a line of scripting that if you're watching the performance, you'll hear me say, let's say we were coincidentally the same year of birth.
Yeah, I like that.
Right, I put that in because it confuses things a little bit more. You'll always find, and this is a bit that's important to take note of, the total's always going to be double the year you're in or just one less. So 4032 or 4031. What's even more beautiful is I know your total were 4031. We're in the middle of the year now, we're in the 6th month. So this is my favourite time of year to perform this effect. The reason being, if your total is 4032, that tells me your birthday is already passed, right? Which means now I'm down to 6 star signs. And of those star signs, some will be longer than others, and I can use a comparative uncertainty principle, which I'm not going to tip in this, to guess that. If it's 4031, your birthday has not yet occurred, right? So which you imagine getting towards the back end of the year, and you're like in the 8th month, 9th month, and you do this, and it's still 4031. You're down to 3 star sign.
Yeah.
And you know you can just guess the star sign from there, right? So remember what I'm saying here. If it's 4032 or 4031, and you can tell by looking at somebody if you were worried about missing on that last digit because it's the power digit. So the power digit's the one that you finished the reveal on. I know I'm going to hit on the 4. I know I'm going to hit on the 0. I know I'm going to hit on the 3. I'm unsure on the 1 and the 2 at the end. In this case, double 2016. So if you're worried about that, and I'm not, because I'm very linguistic when I do it. Is this like a 1 or a 2? This is like a 1? No, a 2. I'm very linguistic and verbal when I do this. If you're worried about it, you say, what I want you to do is just see these numbers in a random order for me. Focus on the last one for me. Focus on that. Okay, I'm struggling here. This is like a 1 or a 2? A 2, right? Now go back to the beginning of this. A 4, a 0. We've got the last one. We just need the middle one. What's the middle one? And then they go 4 or 3, 1, 4 or 3, 2, whatever it is, and then you go a little bit like that. So if you're worried about losing the power at the hit at the end, just reveal the last digit first and then come back to the start and then work sequentially through them. I never worry about that. It's something I've never really thought about. But from a choreography point of view, you might want it to be hit, 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 or ascending hits. That's the way you do it. So just to give an example, if it was next year, 4036, if it was next year 2017, what I do is, all I typically do is just type 2017 into my phone and times it by 2. 4034 or 4033 are going to be the totals next year. If it were 2020, like this, I'd times that by 2. That's going to be 4040 or 4039. It's always just double the year you're currently in or less by 1. And that's it, we've arrived at the end of the download. I really hope you enjoyed the content. I've held this content dear to me for a long time, and I know you're going to do great things with it. If you loved the material on this project, please leave a review in the box. Thank you for your time.